Okay, can. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chan from MPMS Secretariat. Welcome to this dialogue on issues relating to the accommodation for foreign workers. The X446 has been enforced, and now we receive a lot of queries from members regarding issues related to this foreign workers housing. Basically, under this 446, all the employees are required to build the centralized labor quarters or CLQ for their workers. So there are many questions about this CLQ, like where should we build a CLQ, what's the cost, where is the location, and what are the approvals required, etc. Another area is before the CLQ is built, you have to house your workers at the temporary area. We call it temporary CLQ. You may house them at the shop lots or some of at the housing areas. But members are facing problems when they're trying to build the temporary CLQ at the shop lots or housing areas. They're facing some approval issues, and those who wanted to build at the housing area, they're also facing some objections from the residential association, etc. So today we invite our Central Committee member, Mr. P.K. Leong, to share with you on the guidelines on the Act 446, and he will try to answer the issues that you're facing. Before we start, let's do some housekeeping. Let's go to the webinar etiquette. So we have made all the participants to ensure there's no disruption throughout the dialogue. You only need to ask the questions that are related to this dialogue, but not any other questions. If there's chat box there, you may also put your question at the chat box. Also, we request the participant please refrain from marketing your products or services in the chat box. So the organizer actually reserves the right to remove participants who run foul of these dialogues etiquette. Let's introduce Mr. P.K. Leong. He is the company advisor on HR matters for many plastics manufacturers in Berhad. Mr. P.K. Leong has served in the Central Committee in MPMA for many years, and on issue related to human resources. He's also the committee members of the FMM Human Resource Management Committee. Let's welcome Mr. P.K. Leong.
Mr. Leong, can you start now?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is quite a good crowd, 60 of you. At our last amendment to the EA, we only have 20 participants. Okay, never mind. Now, in as far as the Act 446 is concerned, actually, this is not something new. It was discussed with stakeholders in 2018, in fact, and it was implemented in 2020, and it came into force on September 2021. Now, based on the feedback from Mr. Chan, Sujata, and so on, I think the basic problem is misunderstanding of the Act 446. Okay, the misunderstanding between two very important terms, TLQ and CLQ. Now, I think if we understand that that those two terms are, we should, well, most of the questions posed can be answered very quickly. Now, what I'll do is I will share some documents, on this issue. Okay, let me see. Okay. Can you see this? Can all of you see this? Mr. Chan, can you all see this?
No.
No, I can still see your face.
Oh, you all don't like my face, huh? Let me see. See it now?
Still unable.
Oh, still unable. What's wrong?
Yes, now can see.
Okay, you can see. Can you see this document?
Yes, can see.
Okay. Now, if you look at the document, actually it's dated 2nd September 2020. So, which means that the MPMA actually has made sent out circulars to all our members since 2020. Now, for some reason, you see, including links and all the things. But to be very honest, I do understand some of you may not have received it. MPMA, just like any other trade associations, will send circulars to designated people. And usually they are the MDs, the GMs, the bosses, and so on, which I think sometimes too busy to look at all those things. And then they forgot to send it down to the HR and all the relevant personnel. So this is just to inform that MPMA was addressing this issue. And then if you look at the first paragraph, regulations came into operation 1st September 2020. Okay?
Mr.
Yeah, we can't see the slide.
Right?
Sorry, you have to open the document.
Yeah, just a
The
document,
file.
but it's not open.
Oh, I see. Okay. I don't understand what's wrong. We tested it just now. It was all right. Let me see. Apologize.
Mr. Liang, I suggest you open it on your desktop, then you share from there.
That is on my desktop now.
It's open on your desktop.
Yes. This is
Mr. Tequila, can you share your screen? Just click share screen.
sorry.
Click at the green share screen. You're not sharing your screen.
The green
okay.
button.
Yes, thank you.
now,
I
right?
think the
Now
others also is already open here. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Now, if you look at it, it's dated again on top here, 2nd September 2020, and then the regulation came into force 1st September. Okay. Now, even after that, I did receive. Do you see the second slide? Do you see the second slide?
Letter
Yes, we
to
can.
Dato Superman.
Yes. This is a draft that I received from Dato Lim, our MPMA president. I do not know whether it has been sent out or not, but again, dated September 2020, asking for a sort of called a additional time to allow necessary adjustments. But at any rate, the final decision was 1st September 2020. Now, okay. If you look at this is guidelines from the MOHR regarding minimums, the Act 446. Now, we receive a lot of complaints. I think my feeling is all of a sudden this became an issue because of the news statement by Selangor Exco, right? Which is, to me, is very confusing. Okay. Now, first of all, we need to understand, as I mentioned earlier on, we need to understand between TLQ and CLQ. TLQ stands for temporary labor quarters. CLQ stands for central labor quarters. Central labor quarters is accommodation, or in the Act 446, if you read the Act, it is actually defined as dormitories. The houses that we have, the residential property, the shop lot, and all those things are not dormitories. They are what we term as TLQs, temporary labor quarters. Now, why is there two different things? Number one, the CLQ for dormitories, the requirement for CLQs is very wide. You know, you need to have a special building, or you need to have fenced up buildings. I will show you examples of CLQs later on. It is a proper, it's almost like a condo or a flat community where the area is fenced off, and then you need to have recreational facilities, you need to have a canteen, you need to have dobies and so on. Those are not available yet. So CLQs, be very careful when you use the phrase. CLQs, it's not to say zero, but there are very, very few in Malaysia right now. We have some in Johor, we have some in Penang. I think there's one in Puchong, and so on. So what we do is, but then that is the ultimate aim of the government. The ultimate game plan for the government is to house all foreign workers in CLQs. Okay, but in the meantime, when these CLQs are not ready, what do we do? So the government has taken a two-pronged approach. One, CLQ is on the long term. TLQs or temporary labor quarters are all your residentials, your shop lots, and so forth. So they allow employers to, in a way, practice the status quo, allow you to house them in residential and shop lots and so on, provided you get a COA, Certificate of Accommodation from the JTK. Okay, so the COA you have to apply to the local labor office, right? I will describe the process and so on afterwards. You can house them as long as you get a COA, Certificate of Accommodation from the JTK, until such time that either you, the employers, or a developer or the government builds a CLQ in the area. Of course, there are two basic criteria for CLQs. One, the CLQs available must be within reasonable distance to the foreign workers' place of work, number one. And of course, number two is the cost. Employers cannot afford 1,000, 2,000 ringgit, per unit. Okay, we were talking about between 300 to 500 ringgit per unit. Okay, now then there is this question of, okay, before the CLQs is available, we are still practicing our usual practice, doing our usual practice of residential and so on, which is termed as TLQ, temporary. But then I think MPMA has received a lot of complaints saying, hey, I can't get the residentials, and so on and so forth. And then some people tell me that we cannot house people in residential or shop lots. This is not true. Okay. Now, if you look at this document, this is from the JTK or MOHR. At the bottom, you see that jenis-jenis bangunan yang boleh diguna sebagai penginapan atau penginapan berpusat. Rumah teres, berkembar, bungalow, pangsa puri, flat, condominium, townhouse, rumah kedai, and so on. These can be used, okay, but it has to meet certain requirement put up by the what they call the JTK. Okay, now, so far, any question about the difference between TLQs and CLQs?
Hi, Dato'.
I'm sorry, not Dato', just call me PK.
Okay, I'm Zuraida from Jason and Jason.
Yep.
Okay, just now you said it is not true that JTK not approve this kind of houses, but it's happened to us actually. We rental bungalow at the residential area, and then JTK already came for inspection. All is complete. Our accommodation is tip top. But it's rejected because we cannot get approval from MBS. So when we go to MBS, the MBS said we must get approval from the around neighbor there.
Okay, now, okay, are you housing them in rumah terrace or shop lot?
Like a bungalow 3 tiers, but at the residential area.
Okay, residential area. Okay, so which JTK office do you go to?
Subang Jaya.
Subang Jaya. Now, by right, you actually do not, I do not know what's happening there, to be very honest. By right, two things is happening. Number one, residential, to get a COA for residential, do not need the approval of the local council.
But it's
No.
happened to us. So how?
Okay, let me explain. My factory is in Rawang. I have COA for 38 flats, and then another 7 pending because I got my new batch of foreign workers. So they just arrived, so we have applied. So there must be something not right. To be honest with you, that is why, you see, this document says you can use them. I don't know whether I should say it or not, but there seem to be little Napoleons all over the place. Now, as far as this is concerned, the whole of Malaysia, except Malacca, right, has adopted this. Now, Selangor has adopted this in March or April 2021. This came from Datuk Teng Chang Kim, Selangor Exco for industry. I would suggest that you go to Invest Selangor. Okay, I tell you why I suggest you go to Invest Selangor. I'm sorry to the other participants. I'm very familiar with Selangor because I'm in Selangor, but generally this is the route that we will take. Towards the middle or end of 2021, we in Selangor were also facing problems with the PBT. So we approach Dato' Teng, the Selangor Exco for industry. And then we had a session with Invest Selangor, right? Okay, the issue at that time was not the Rumah Terrace because in, sorry, I'm in the Selayang area, the Selayang Majlis Perbandaran Selayang or the JTK office in my area, which is Rawang, we just apply for residential. We do not need MPS Majlis Perbandaran Selayang approval. You apply, they approve. But if you were to use shop lots, then you need to get the approval from the local council because shop lots are not residential, they are commercial. So it has to be renovated, you know, to satisfy bomber requirements and so on. So if it is residential, and then Majlis or the what they call you're in Subang Jaya, right?
Yes, Subang Jaya.
Okay, I suggest that you write to Invest Selangor or email Invest Selangor or go to Invest Selangor, right? Tell them the issue because they were actually tasked by Dato' Teng to help us out. Okay.
Sorry, invest to what Selangor? I can get you. Sorry.
Selangor.
Can you type at the chat? Sorry.
I think those days they call SSIC lah. SSIC.
Okay.
SSIC.
So I write to them.
You write to them, or the better still, you go there. You find you get the address. You go there. You tell them your issue. They are actually tasked by the Selangor state government to help in Selangor to help employers overcome all these issues. In fact, when Selayang had this issue, he instructed, Dato' Teng instructed SSIC, and SSIC instructed the YDP of Majlis Perbandaran Selayang to have a special meeting and then give us special priority to get all the necessary approvals. Okay.
Okay.
So is it so far all right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. It used to be SSIC. They changed the
Mr. Leong, you're muted. Mr. Leong, you're muted.
Okay. You see this next one, permohonan permit penginapan pusat, section 24D. You all see this? This is how you apply. This is online. You go online, you can apply online, and then you fill up all these things that are recorded here, and you should be all right. Okay, now in as far as what they call the in as far as the requirement is concerned, is actually here. Oh, sorry, this is the when you apply for the COA, right? This is the cost of the certificate. Okay, now 100 ringgit for less than 10 workers, 300 ringgit for more than 10, right? And 2,000 ringgit, right? More than 500 and so on. So in fact, if you look at this this particular schedule, okay, you find that number one is most applicable for the time being. More than 10, it is for shop lots. 2,000, this is where the CLQ comes in, you know, the flats and condos and so on. So these are the costs involved. And if you apply for COA, these are the documents that is required, you know. These are the JTK required. Here you see, right? These are actually for the shop lots. Okay, I do not know whether most of you are doing it or not, but there's a maximum that the employer can deduct from foreign workers, which is 100 ringgit. That's it. No more than 100 ringgit. It can be less, it cannot be more. This is actually a copy of a certificate of one of my what they call hostels. Once you have gone through the process, they will issue you a certificate with all these things, and this has to be posted on the door. It cannot be posted. This certificate, one copy must be on the door of the hostel, and then it says how many persons and so on. And then for us, we do not deduct maximum 100. We only deduct 50 ringgit a month from the workers. But if we want to, we can deduct 100, maximum allowable. Okay, now you see, this is penginapan atau penginapan berpusat. Okay, so you need to have this for them. These are the minimum requirements. Rest area, dinner area, bilik tidur, and so on and so forth. And then, okay, of course, everybody knows 6 person to 1 toilet, fan, and all those things. Whereas, okay, now you will see, this is bukan berbentuk dormitory. So these are TLQs, your shop lots and residential areas. Now, if you look at berbentuk dormitory, right, it's almost the same, but it also has got the toilet has to be big, 15 persons, okay, and you know, you also, because these are dormitories, you need to have, especially this H, satu ruang menyidai pakaian, you know, to dry your clothes and so on. But actually, they ask for more. Okay, I think now let me see. Okay. Do you all guys see this new screen? Malati,
Yes, yes, can.
this new one, okay. This is the proposal from Plan Malaysia, right? Actually, this is the one that I mentioned is a bit confidential, but never mind, I'll share, but I cannot share with the participants. Okay, you'll notice that here on this slide, it says jangka pendek, jangka panjang. Jangka panjang is where the CLQs and jangka pendek is the TLQs. Actually, this is from the Housing and Local Government, Ministry of Housing and Local Government. Now, I'll show you what they mean by a proper CLQ. Okay. You all see this? This is what they term as CLQs. These are all in Penang. Sorry, in Singapore. Of course, the top one is Johor Technology Park. Right? This whole area is fenced off. Okay. Now, Penang, Bukit Minyak, those Westlight. Okay. These are the basic what they call facilities they insist on. You know, sporting facilities, recreational facilities, right? There's one more slide. It also includes dobies and guards and so on and so forth. This is CLQ. What we have, or what we are having problem, or in a way problem, is TLQs. And then most of our employers are using residentials and what do you call, and shop lots. Now, as I mentioned early on, residential areas, I do not know about the other states, but most states, they have adopted this plan. So which means that, in fact, even in JTK, right, as I said, my own company, I have got about 45 hostels without having, because they are residential flats, walk-up flats, we do not need local council, Majlis approval. You will need Majlis approval if you use shop lots, because shop lots, as I said, is a commercial property. It needs to be modified or renovated with the rooms and so on and so forth. And then also it has to be, you have to put in the fire escape for the second floor, and you will also have to put in additional toilets, because under the TLQ, the number of foreign workers per toilet is 6. Shop lots, they only have one on the ground floor and one on the top floor. You will not be able to meet that requirement, so you need to renovate. So when you renovate, you have to submit to the PBTs or the Majlis, Subang Jaya, MPS, or Petaling, or whatever, for the approval. Now, the biggest issue right now is this. You can get the architect to draw, you have to get the architect to draw, and so on. But one of the biggest issue is most local councils, they do not allow, or at least in Selangor, they do not allow the owners to submit. They will only accept the submission through a town planner. And submission to a town planner is very expensive. It's between 10 to as high as 20,000 ringgit per submission. So in fact, tomorrow we are having a sort of lunch with this Dato' Ting from Selangor Exco member, and we are trying to ask him if he can waiver that or not. Because after all, it's just submission. The drawings are actually done by the architects, not the town planners. The building are done by contractors. And also our view is, we pay this extra 10 to 12,000 for a temporary TLQ, temporary labor quarters. So next time after we renovate and so on, right, somebody builds a CLQ, we have to move our foreign workers there. That's one issue. And then after we move, on top of the renovation costs and so on, when we move out, we have to restore the shop lots back to original condition before we return to the shop lot owner. So the cost is very, very high. So we are trying to ask the Selangor Exco if they can sort of waiver this or not, just to save costs. Now I'm going to share another, what do you call that? Another document. It's a PowerPoint. Malati, can you see this? Can you all see this?
Can see. Can see.
Okay, this is a PowerPoint I did. I did a briefing for the Kuala Langat people, FMM lah. Okay, now I think this is in more detail, right? Of course, this is some of the pictures of the hostels then lah. I think this is in Muar, where the JTK raided. Okay, and I think we skipped the history. Okay, this is a timeline, as I mentioned earlier on. Okay, the consultation was done in 2018. It was gazetted in 2019. Okay, in May 2020, the government gave notice for compliance by August 31st, 2020, and it came into force in June 1st. Sorry, it came into force on 1st September, one day after August 31st. Okay, now these are the minimum standards that the JTK will be asking for. Okay. Here again, okay, again, you will see that on the left-hand corner of this slide, bukan dormitory, dormitory. Okay, so bukan top dormitory is the TLQs, dormitory are the CLQs. Okay, and then you say bukan dormitory on the bottom, satu tandas 6 pekerja. Dormitory satu tandas 15 pekerja. These are the what you call the flats and so on. It's different. Okay, now this is required for every hostel, whether it's CLQ or TLQ. You know, you have to have beds with what? Okay, 1.7 meters square at least, with tilam 4 inches and so on. Okay, you have to have lockers for them, provide lockers for them. Okay, this is an example of a flat, a 3-room flat. Room number 1, which is at the bottom here, total 10.6 meters square. You can only put in 2 workers. Room number 2, you can put in 2 workers and so on. This is an example of a flat. Okay, of course, with dining area, living area, kitchen, right? And then remember, you have to give them lockers because they require lockers to store their documents. We are not supposed to keep their passports and so on. So we must give them proper lockers to store their travel documents. Okay, this is roughly how it should look like. Okay, this is dormitory. You see, if you look at the bottom right, common bath. Bottom left here, common toilets, right? And then of course the bedrooms. Okay, and of course you must have persons in charge. This applies also for TLQs, right? First aid boxes and so on. Okay, now appointment of hostels is recommended. Person in charge. This person should be appointed as person in charge with an appointment letter, so that the workers they understand that, hey, look, this guy is in charge, right? Or else they don't know who's in charge. then they will not listen to this person. Okay. This person is also to conduct briefing and complete with authority and telephone numbers to call in case of emergencies. He has to ensure that the hostels, right, are well maintained, right? He has to have a logbook for him to record incidents and sign off on scheduled duties carried out because, housekeeping and so on and so forth. But appointment, there's another item that is very important for this hostel person in charge. This person actually forms the communication between the company and the residential areas. The residents or the residents association. Of course, as I think there are concerns and there are complaints that the residential association, they are unhappy to see foreign workers there, and the residents association advised the residents not to rent out and so on. If you have this person in charge and he's able to form some kind of relationship with the residents in the area, it will be very helpful. Now, just as an example, earlier I mentioned that I have about 45 hostels there in near my area, near the factory. We have this person in charge who was able or is able to have some sort of relationship with the residents, and we do not have problem. Any issue these residents have, they will go straight to this person in charge. They normally do not escalate up to the police or the immigration and so on and so forth. They will just go to this person, and this person actually undertakes to pass their complaints to the company, and the company takes action. One example, in 2020, we had a few foreign workers with COVID-19, and we had to isolate them in the hostels. So we isolated them in the hostel, but this person in charge made it a point to inform the residents that these are, of course, we put up the signboards and so on, inform the residents that, look, these are our what they call isolation hostels. Please do not go near. Then after the isolation is over, this person in charge made arrangement with the company to get the hostels sanitized. And this person invited the residents or the neighbors to come and look at it. So the neighbors are confident that, hey, look, our houses are being well looked after, and then our well-being is being looked after. Because we do not sanitize, the children or whoever may just go in and get infected. So this is a sort of a PR person. Okay. Again, you may not have to have a person in charge for every hostel, but it's good. But then it can be for a group hostel, maybe one person looking after 3 hostels or 5 hostels. Okay, this is okay. Now, these are some of the examples of overcrowded hostels that the JTK, they are very unhappy about. Again, I also mentioned, right, the involvement of municipal councils in the event of renovations. Okay, this in particular is related to the shop lots and then the JTK. One thing, the JTK, once they issue you the COA, it is for 3 years. Again, this is why it is called TLQs. They will issue for 3 years until such time that there is CLQ within reasonable distance from your company or from your factory, right? Then you have to move there. Once you have that, they will not renew your COA already. They say, okay, I will not renew, you have to move there. It is within reasonable distance and within reasonable cost. I have, as far as I'm concerned, I think I have tried to explain the difference between all these things. Now, I think the most important thing is the concerns of the what they call the members attending this dialogue session. Mr. Chan, can you sorry, Mr. Chan?
Sit down.
Okay, now can you help us go through their concerns?
Okay, before that, there was one
Yeah.
question in the chat box.
Yeah.
There's one participant, they want to apply to convert the shop lot into hostel. So
Yes.
ask what is the procedure
Sorry?
to convert the shop lot into the temporary hostel.
Yes.
What's the procedure?
Okay, as I said, the first thing is you go on the JTK website online, you apply, right? Of course, inside there they will have all the requirement and so on. Once you apply, the JTK will come back to you and say, look, shop lots, you need what do you call it? You will need local council approval, because, as I said, shop lots are not meant for residents. It's a commercial property. And of course, you have to renovate it, right, to meet the requirement. Because, first of all, as employers, we must understand. Actually, there are two basic reasons why we use shop lots. One, we cannot get residential houses, flats, and so on. And number two, right, shop lots, a lot of employers, they like to use shop lots because you can house a lot of people inside there. Whereas a flat or residential houses, the most you can put in is, depending on the size of the unit, the most is between 6, 8 maximum. But the shop lot, sometimes you can house 15, 20, even 25, which means that based on the requirement of the Act 446, it has to have a room, you have to have sufficient toilets, because one of the requirement is 6 toilets to workers. So if you were to house, let's say 10 workers, you need to have 2 toilets. If you house 20, you need to have 3 toilets. You need to have additional toilets. The third thing is also very important. The local council will not approve until Bomber gives the blessings. That Bomber will normally require sorry, shop lots. If you are using just the ground floor, you're okay. But then people will use second floor, even some shop lots 3 floors. So those people living in second and third floor, in case there's a fire, there's only one escape through the staircase. For Bomber requirement, always 2 escapes. In case the front part of it catches fire, there's a fire escape at the door, at the back. You know, just like in town, you see those what they call budget hotels. If you go around the back of the budget hotels, normally they will have one of those steel staircases. Those are Bomber requirement for what do you call for escape in case of a fire. So, which means that it has to go through the PBT. The PBT approves. Then with the letter of approval from the PBT, you submit to the JTK. You should be able to get it. And of course, again, as our conversation earlier on, that is the issue like PBT. Yeah, you have little Napoleons and so on. But as far as I know, Selangor, we are all right because Selangor State had officially in 2021 adopted this plan. Does that answer the question? Mr. Chan?
The question is from
Mr. Tay Suiling, is it?
yeah.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Tay? Mr. Tay, are you there? Okay, Chan, can we go on the next one?
Okay, you want to share the question, right?
No, any other one on the checkbox first? Just two.
That's the main one. Yeah.
Okay, I think Adila here. Adila, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So I think you understand,
Yeah.
the town planner part, even MPS. For the moment in the Selayang area, I have about, let me see here, I think about 6 companies kena this planner issue of about 12,000 ringgit just to submit. Right?
Yeah.
I was in FMM the other day. I was talking to somebody, one of the vice presidents, right? When I told him about 12,000, he said, "Hey, why so cheap?" In fact, 12,000 he considers cheap,
Yeah.
So that
Is
is
it
why,
for one? Is it for one unit or over all?
sorry,
The planner fee, the planner fee, is it
Ah.
for the cost is for one unit?
1 unit.
Oh.
For 1 unit. That is why I mentioned earlier on that there is actually a lunch informal lunch with Dato' Teng tomorrow, and then we plan to ask him to see if he can help us by waiving it or not. Because yes, we spend all this money for a temporary hostel,
Yes.
right? It is not permanent. And as I said, of course, if after 3 years there's still no CLQ, we can renew, right? The government is not going to say that, oh, I won't renew, then where are we going to put our foreign workers? But if so happens somebody sets up a CLQ, after 3 years, your investment gone, And
Yes.
on top of that, you again, as I said, you must restore the shop lot to the original condition to return to the shop lot owner. I think there's another question here.
Yeah, this is a fresh one.
Okay.
If let's say we renovate the shop lot with contractor, but didn't have the drawing from architect or consultants, can we apply license? We just renovate to do room and toilet.
No, you see, when you do that, sorry, you said drawing from architect can apply drawing from architect, we just renovate, do room and toilet. You will not be able to do that because, again, you do that, you build the rooms and the toilets and so on. You do not have the local council's approval. JTK will ask for the local council's surat sokong. You understand? JTK, the authority issuing the COA, they will need the Surat Sokong, a copy of the Surat Sokong from the local council. Now, if you renovate, you do up the room, do a toilet, you can do whatever you want, but as long as the local council, the Majlis doesn't, if you do not submit, the Majlis will not issue a Surat Sokong. If you do not issue a Surat Sokong, the JTK, the Labour Office, won't issue the COA. Okay? Penang. Okay. Other than Penang, Penang, Subang Jaya. Okay. I don't think on this issue of not giving the approval. Now, I mentioned earlier on, the entire, all the states except Malacca except Malacca is having a problem there. We understand. But Penang, there's no issue. Penang is no issue. Selayang is no issue. As I said, Selayang is no issue. My factory is in the Selayang area, Rawang. We have the COA for 38 already confirmed, and another 7 more is under process. It's under process not because of anything. It's just because my new foreign workers just arrived 2 weeks ago, and those are my new shop lots. Sorry, not my new shop lot. Those are the flats we are going to use. We only apply for COA when somebody is staying there.
We have the issue in Penang side. Sorry, I'm interrupt.
Yeah, yes.
MPSP is not issue approval for using a residential house, like double-story house, to become a hostel. Although we are applying for TLQ, and if we are not getting the PBT letter, then JTK will not approve on the for use that house to as a hostel.
That is actually quite strange, you know, because I must apologize. Other than MPMA, I think Chan also mentioned earlier on that I also serve in the FMM Human Resource Management Committee. There's no issue in Penang.
Actually, we are facing, because we are applying.
The thing is, are they rejecting? Did they give you the reason for rejecting?
Yes, because they say you cannot use the residential area as your TLQ.
TLQ or CLQ?
TLQ.
Sorry?
TLQ.
Temporary.
Yes.
But Penang has always been doing that.
Yeah, but now because we have a new foreign worker came in, then we have a new house for them to accommodate. That's why when we go and apply it, and then we cannot get this approval from JTK, because of MPSP is not issue out the PBT letter, so we cannot get the JTK approval.
I see. Can the state government help?
I don't
Just
know.
like every state,
never go to the state level yet.
No, every state has got an agency similar to Invest Selangor.
Yeah. Penang also have an Invest Penang.
Invest Penang. Maybe you approach Invest Penang, because very simple, right? I have the workers here. You do not allow me to apply for TLQ, right? CLQ, is it available near your factory? If it is, then of course you have to use them. But if it's not available, right, where do you expect me to house them?
It is available, but the only thing is fully booked already, so there's no empty space.
Is it? Okay. Then maybe you have to appeal and get a letter from get some sort of a letter from the CLQ, people running the CLQ that is fully booked. Yes, which is, in a way, that is correct, because as long as they are CLQs, they will not issue the permits. But then, of course, in your case, they are fully booked, none available. So my suggestion is that you appeal, and maybe they will ask you for some sort of proof that those are all fully booked and so on.
Okay.
Any more?
Okay, Mr. Leong, there's another question in the chat box. Can we allow our foreign workers to stay in the factory premises?
Yes, you can, as long as, number one, your factory CCC allows for hostels. And number two, the hostels meet with the Act 446 requirement. I have a factory, again, I have a factory in Egypt, right? In our CCC, or those days, they call it CF, now we call it CCC. There is a provision inside there for hostels. Okay, if there is a provision for hostel, you can apply, and of course, you can provide, and of course, the hostels can have to meet with all the requirements, the beds, the tilam, the toilets, the cooking utensils, right? A proper toilet, right? Ventilation, and so on and so forth. Yes, you can. But check your CCC first. I say this because earlier on, I mentioned we have a factory in Egypt doing this, but next door is also another one of my factories. They tried to do it, got rejected because their CCC does not state that they have hostel there. So two factories next to each other, one can, one cannot. And then the reason is the other factory CCC doesn't say hostel. Okay. There is one stay in factory premise consider TLQ or CLQ. It should be considered a CLQ. Any more?
If there's no more, should we go through the questions submitted earlier by the participants?
Okay, go ahead, please.
Can you see the questions?
Yes.
Okay, number one, how does the CLQ impacting companies that already having existing properties for hostel purposes?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier on, as long as the CLQ, again, this condition, the CLQ is within reasonable distance from your factory and at reasonable cost, right? You have to move them, right? You can, you can wait until your COA run out lah. If you have a COA in your hostels, existing properties or hostel, normally is you should be called a TLQ, and if it has the COA, you can let it because the COA are issued. Remember, I said CLQs will be issued should be renewed every 3 years. So you let it run, right? And then if you ask for renewal, they approve it, you're lucky, go ahead. Don't have to go to the CLQ. If they say reject, then you have to move over to the proper CLQ. Right? I think I answered your second question. Is there a framework guideline application?
Yeah, that's in the Act 446.
Yes. And then will the size of a company determine the number of units? No. Your company can be 10,000 people, or it can be one person. You can still apply. Number 3 also, I think we've answered that. CLQ in Klang. I think there are, okay. The question number 3, probably it is a misunderstanding, right? Some guidelines for CLQ in Klang, because CL probably whoever put up this question meant TLQ, because not many factories will want to build a flat with all the facilities, with guard, with fencing, with the what do you call, recreational facilities, badminton court, and so on and so forth. If I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah, but if we want to build a CLQ, then they would not know what is the cost. What's the cost involved?
Then again, I would not be able to tell you the cost, depending on the size of the CLQ.
Per square feet or something?
Huh?
Cost per square feet? Any guidelines?
No, 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 no.
Depends on the area, location.
No, you see, per square feet of the CLQ, the cost, it will either, some, okay, for example, somebody will say, okay, I want to build a CLQ and so on and so forth. Okay, put it this way, I know a friend of mine who is not a CLQ, a TLQ. He houses all his foreign workers in a condo with aircon and so on. Right? So it also depends on the facilities that you want to provide them. The size of the CLQ, the facilities, right? And then, of course, one of the items they require is, in a CLQ, is the area, Adobe area, right? The machines and so on and so forth. It's very difficult to have a guideline. The cost involved, the cost will only come when after your architects design your CLQ, or maybe the size of your room. Okay, number 4, is there a grace period for transition? No more already, because it's supposed to be 2021. No, there is no government tax relief in the interim.
Sorry,
Why
Mr. Leong. Mr. Leong,
Sorry?
coming back to question number 4, Mr. Leong. The Act 446 already implemented. What's the deadline that all the employers have to comply with this?
No, now,
Now for the employer. But
now.
if in between that they are giving 3 years.
No. You must understand. Going back to the difference between TLQ and CLQ, right? The Act 446, all it does is issue a COA, Certificate of Accommodation, right? For your, I wouldn't say, okay, a certificate of accommodation for housing. I wouldn't say CLQ or TLQ. A certificate of accommodation for housing your foreign workers. Now, this involves 2 items, either TLQ or CLQ. So, okay, for the time being, if your area does not have a CLQ yet, you have to use a TLQ with a COA, with a certificate of accommodation. There's no transition period. Now, if the area near your factory already has a CLQ and your hostels already have a COA for 3 years, you can just leave them be and run off the 3 years and then reapply to renew. If they do not renew, then you have to move. So it's already implemented. This grace period of transition, I do not know whether the question is regarding, most probably I think this question is regarding certificate of accommodation, because without a certificate of accommodation, under the Act 446, the Ministry of Human Resources can penalize you. You get what I mean? Mr. Chan?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So there's no transition already. Okay, number 6. Once a company has built its CLQ, no need to comply with Act 446. No, you have to build your CLQ if you want to, in compliance with the requirement of the Act 446. Act 446 specifies the requirement for TLQ or CLQ. Remember, yesterday we said for TLQ, for example, one difference is for TLQ, six workers to one toilet. For TLQ, 15 to one toilet. These are stated in the Act 446. So it doesn't matter whether you build a CLQ or you use TLQ, residential houses or chop lot to house your foreign workers, you still have to comply with Act 446. Okay, number 7, to control utility usage. Yes, you can. Right? Either you set a normally people will not set a limit, right? But most people will deduct from salary. But when you deduct from salary, you must set the limit, right? For example, electricity. Okay, now for this particular hostel, I set the limit to, let's say 150. Let's say, just to make it easy calculate, I set it to 60 ringgit because 6 person to a house. Each person, I deduct 10 ringgit. You know, you can control it that way, right? Or you can say, okay, 6 ringgit, 10 ringgit for electricity and 5 ringgit or 2 ringgit for water. But you must remember to deduct from employees, you must get the approval from your local JTK office. You control it indirectly, you control it with cost. Okay, can the employer use container to convert into hostels? What are the requirements? Okay, now I would not recommend it because using containers has got a very negative connotation for 2 reasons. Number 1, I have seen a factory in Sungai Buloh. This owner, I actually visited the factory. This owner used 2 or 3 containers stacked on top of each other. Okay, and then there's door at one end, and then he has got these 2 rows of bed on left and right. Actually, store racks and plywood. That's all. It's very, very bad. Okay, he has got a very bad reputation. The second thing is, as I said, it has got a very bad connotation. But if you want to do that, you can. You can. I do not have the details, but SIRIM has got their requirements. They usually use it for foreign workers in the construction industry, because you get a contract for 5 years, 10 years, or 5 years, 10 years, or 5 or 6 years to build a township or to build a building, right? You cannot have a CLQ. And then these workers, construction workers, move from site to site. So because of that, they are allowed to use containers, but it has got certain certain requirements, certain standards. I'm sorry, I do not have those standards, but if you want, you could ask either SIRIM develop that standard, or from the Master Builders Association, MBM, Master Builders Association of Malaysia, MBAM. They have the standards. You can. And then where is the correct location to put the containers? Well, anywhere reasonable, right? Within your factory, or you have an empty piece of land, of course, with reasonable access. I think number 9 is a repeat of number 1. Okay. Number 10, if a factory is nearby housing, what is the... If the factory is nearby a housing area, what is a suitable accommodation for foreign workers? Well, as I said, housing area, if you can get, right, to be easy, residential area, single stories and so on, right? Or walk-up flats, right? Again, suitable accommodation means meeting with the Act 446 requirement. What is the minimum staff accommodation? I think we've covered that, right? The Act 446 actually specifies, right? Not only the minimum staff accommodation, what you need to provide for them. What you need to provide for them, you know, the mattresses and so on. So it's answered already. Okay, will the officer from Tenaga Kerja JTK make site inspection despite local council already made site visit? Yes, yes, because the local council will only check as far as the bomber requirement and all the other things, but they do not check the things like fire extinguisher, first aid box, right? And so on, and then they do not check the mattresses, the beds, the lockers, and so on. Those are JTK or Tenaga Kerja requirement. Local council is different. They have different items to check. I think okay, the Penang state government do not allow. I think that is answered. Again, probably because around the area there is already CLQ, and then because the Penang State MPSB knows that there is a CLQ, they reject it, but they may not know, as we discussed just now, they may not know that those CLQs are full. So I think we have to, whoever poses this question has to appeal, and at the same time, they may, Penang State MPSB may want some kind of proof or surat sokongs to say that, oh, they are full, we cannot take any more, and so on and so forth. If workers are not taking care of the hostel cleanliness, can we deduct a small amount of the salary to hire cleaners? Okay, technically, no. That is why in my presentation just now, it is good to have hostel person in charge to make sure that the hostels are clean and so on. Because to hire salary to hire cleaners is not within the scope of the Act 446. So if we deduct, right, JTK may not give us the approval, right? It is for the person in charge or the HR department to what they call to control that. Okay, we have difficulties in renting houses or shop lots nearby as accommodation for workers. Can we allow workers to stay in a factory? Again, the same answer. You can stay in the allow your workers to stay in the factory, provided number one, your factory CCC has got provisions for hostel, and number two, the hostels you provide in your factory meets with the requirements of the Act 446, right? And of course, third one, there is no what they call no restriction to their movement. No restrictions to the movement. Now, I'm going to say something personal, my personal view, right? It is not, unless it's only 2 or 3 or maybe 10 workers, if it's more, I would my personal opinion, it's not always a good idea to allow workers to stay in the factory, because unless you control them well, you will never know what they do, when they have free time, weekends or at night and so on. So you have to control them properly. But if we are able to control them properly and so on, you're confident that they are well behaved, right? Check your factory CCC. Does it allow for hostels? If it allows for hostel, yes, what you do is you ensure that those accommodations comply with the requirements of Act 446. Okay, our application for hostel permit is not able to obtain approval on JTK due to PBT letter not issued for double-story houses and so on. Again, I do not know from which state, right? But it should not be a problem, because, as I said, most states have, again, I repeat, most states except Malacca. Malacca, we have been having the problem for the last 2 years. But what we understand, it is a political issue between the Invest Malacca and the Chief Minister's office, right? But as far as JTK, okay, Malacca, we actually sent a delegation to JTK Putrajaya to discuss about the Malacca issue. As far as the JTK and the Ministry of Local Housing, right? They have no issue. It is the state government that is against it. Okay, there is one comment here. What about, okay, how about Negeri Sembilan? What about Negeri Sembilan? Mr. Chuan? Chuan Bun, Tan Chuan Bun or Chuan Bun Tan? Okay, requirement is the same. Act 446 is a federal legislation. The requirements are the same. It is not a state legislation, Act 446. It is a national. It is issued by the Minister of Human Resources, which is a federal legislation. Okay, any other question?
I think Mr. Leong has addressed most of the questions. So we still have 67 participants still with us. Are there any questions from you all? You can either ask or put your questions on the chat box.
There's this Mr. Chuan Bun Tan, right? Negeri Sembilan Nilai, no issue, because I know the HR people from the HR director from Sony is my friend, right? And I think one of our members, in fact, our secretary, SecGen, Eddie Fong, right? He is from Negeri Sembilan. He hasn't highlighted any issue from Negeri Sembilan. Of course, in Nilai, what do you call that? There are big industrial areas there, Sony and so on and so forth. They do not have issues. I was with the HR director just last week. He doesn't have issues there. Any other question, Chan?
No, I think you have covered all the questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just as a summary, right? Just as a summary, it is very, very important that we understand 2 or 3 things. Number one, we need to understand that there is a difference between TLQ and CLQ. Be very careful with that. So when we apply or whatever, of course, if you want to apply to JTK for CLQ, then there may be an issue. You don't apply to JTK for CLQ, or you don't apply to JTK for TLQ. You apply to JTK for Certificate of Accommodation, COA, number one. Now, if you understand between the difference between TLQ and CLQ, or CLQ and TLQ, then you will understand the that there is the TLQ is an interim measure until the country or Malaysia has got all the necessary CLQs in place. Then the JTK will not renew your COA, right? And in a way to force you to move to CLQ. One. Another thing is, I do understand from what I heard from on the ground that resident associations and house owners are reluctant to rent out. Of course, one is probably what they call a misguided view of foreign workers, right? Or they are afraid of foreigners among them, number one. And number two, because of the confusing statement made by a Selangor Exco member, right? Some of these house owners or residents association may have the impression that it is illegal to rent and house foreign workers. It is not. That is why in one of my earlier slides, right, the ministry has already said you can shop lots, kampong houses, right, resident area, whatever, right? It is not illegal. It is not illegal. And number three, one more item is, of course, now, if our factory has existing TLQs, residential area and so on, again, it is always good to have a sort of PR person in charge and so on. Another thing that I used to do, or in fact, we are still doing, at one time, the area around my hostels has got dengue cases every week. What I did was I organized a gotong royong with my foreign workers. With the help of local council, they provided all the, the lorry and so on to collect all the rubbish. We provided the nasi lemak and the drinks and so on. And together with the residents, we had a gotong royong to clean up the whole area, not just our houses, the whole residential area. We clean up. Then there was no more dengue cases. So these are some of the things that we can do to instill confidence. Instill confidence that all these things put it this way, instill confidence so that they are not fearful of foreign workers. Okay. Again, from a human rights point of view, I think we should comply with the Act 446, right? After all, these foreign workers are here to help us in the production so that we can earn foreign exchange, right? It is not right for us to bring in foreigners, right, and house them in some of the pictures that you see, right, in containers, in all sorts of plywood shacks and so on. It is not right. In fact, last week, we were asked to have a meeting with some Suhakam ideas and a certain lawyers group. They have been tasked by the federal government to look at all these human rights abuses and maybe propose legislation to control this. But that, don't worry, that is very, very far away, right? They have just started their work, but the bottom line is we still need to look after our foreign workers. Okay. Any comments, any questions,
Mr. Leong,
please?
there's one last question.
Yes.
Is it mandatory to provide blankets and bed sheets?
Sorry?
Is it mandatory to provide blankets and bed sheets to the foreign workers?
Blankets and bed sheets is not mentioned, but mattresses is mentioned.
Mattresses.
Yes, we have to provide mattresses. Of course, it is not mentioned bed sheets or blankets or pillowcases and all those things, right? Right. To me, I think, well, it is only it's up to me lah. It is up to the employer. It's up to the employer. But the law says 46. You have. I remember it's 4-inch, 4-inch mattresses, right? And then beds of a certain size. It's all in the requirement, but it doesn't say bed sheets or blankets and so on. It's just like it says we have to have first aid boxes. It doesn't say what is inside the first aid boxes, right? But what we do in my company is we buy the standard first aid boxes for houses, right? And then again, I know this problem again, first aid boxes needs to be audited at least once every 2 weeks, right? Or else, if you do not audit, you go, anything happen, they open up their first aid box, it'll be empty. It's always like that, right? But we have a system whereby, again, this is where the hostel person in charge helps. He audits the few hostels under his responsibility, and then he will write a report or fill up a requisition to my HR. The HR will top up anything missing or anything not enough. They will top up. Same thing, fire extinguishers. Right? He said must have a fire extinguisher, but it doesn't say what size. Right? There is also a residential size fire extinguishers available. You don't have to be the the one that you look in the factory. If I'm not mistaken, the how many kilo ones. The bare requirements are.
One last question just came in. If short lots are renovated, do they have to put on partition in the short lots?
Yes, you have to, because those are considered rooms, or else the second floor or the ground floor all is considered only one room. You have to put on the partition, but of course, again, it doesn't say what type of partition. It can be brick wall, it can be the normal board partitions and so on. It can be, right?
Yeah, I think it's come to 4:45 right now. If there's no further questions, we want to say a big thank you to Mr. Peter Leong, who have shared his knowledge on these foreign workers issues, and he has answered most of the questions. If you still have further questions, I would suggest member you can email to us later. Then we try to assist from there.
Yes, I hope what I have just presented helps, right? Again, if there's any more, again, please email NPMA, right?
Okay, I put my email address there. Anything you can email.
Yes. I've also told NPMA, the secretariat, that some of the documents that I showed, unfortunately, I don't have the time to go into detail. I just skipped through just now, right? Except for the Plan Malaysia document, I can share all those things as a reference. I will share it through NPMA. Then NPMA can email to all of you. I have to delete one, the draft of Plan Malaysia, because when they issued to me, we were given the understanding that is confidential. So I delete one, but all the others document, including my presentation and all the photographs, I can share. Okay.
Yeah. So I think we shall call the end of the session. Once again, thank you, Mr. Leong, for your time to share with us the information, and to all the participants, stay safe and then see you again.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.